Shalom. We continue with our study of Pirkei Avot, the book of the fathers, and we are going to engage. We are still, of course, we are in the first chapter. And by the way, the book of the fathers, Pirkei Avot, consists of 6 chapters, and every chapter has several, about 18, maybe 16 Mishnayot, paragraphs. And here now we are on the 4th paragraph of the first chapter. Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzereda, Yossi ben Yohanan ish Yerushalayim kibelu mehem. We are dealing now with the new era in the history of the Jewish people. It's called the era of the Zugot. That is before started the era of the sages of the Mishna, but much before was the time when the 2 great rabbis of the generations were known as the couples, the Zugot. So the first ones were Yossi, the son of Yoezer, from the city of Tzereda, which is found in the land of Ephraim at that time, as we find in the book of Melachim, Melachim Aleph, that's the Kings. And Yossi ben Yoezer was the leader of the Sanhedrin, the Nasi, the prince of the Sanhedrin. And then the second one was also very great, and his name was Yossi Ish Yerushalayim, which means he lived in Yerushalayim. And those 2 great rabbis, the first one is the leader of the Sanhedrin, the second one is the second to him, known as the Av Beddin. And both of them, they received the tradition of the Torah from the previous great rabbi, who was Antignos, the man of Socho. Right? What did they say? Of course, they gave us many teachings. Yossi ben Yoezer and Yossi ben Yohanan, many teachings. They were very great rabbis. But here the book of the fathers chooses those little concepts that were given to us by those great men, because those were the points by which they lived. So, first, Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzereda Omer. Yossi, the son of Yoezer, the man of Tzereda, used to say, Yehi betcha bet va'ad lachachamim. Let your house be always a place where the sages gather. This is very important for every Jew. You have a beautiful house, make sure your house also is a place where sages gather and discuss Torah, and this way even the walls of your house will be imbibed with the words of Torah, and that's very useful to your soul. That's the first thing. The second thing that he said, Veheve mit'abek ba'afar raglehem. Make sure that you sit in the dust of the feet of those sages. When you receive sages in your house, in other words, this is an expression saying that you have to behave towards those sages as if the sages are the owner of the house and you are one to serve them. So that's one way how to say it. To be mit'abek ba'afar raglehem, to sit in the dust of the feet of those sages. Of course, primarily the meaning is that whatever they say, you should consider with great respect and honor, as if it was said by a very great authority. That's very important in order to allow the Torah to become not only part of our existence, but the most important part of the existence of the Jewish people. So, one of the conditions is to treat also the sages with the proper honor, and to like it says in the last saying here, Veheve shote batzama et divrehem. Make sure you drink their words with thirst. which means, let's say you listen to a lecture by those sages, make sure you give an expression of a person who is very eager to hear what they say, thirsty to hear their words. Sometimes it's important, even if you are not very much interested, but show interest. It's very important to encourage an atmosphere of Torah. Very important. The next Mishnah talks about the saying of Yossi ben Yochanan, the man of Yerushalayim. First saying that he said, Yehi betcha patuach larvacha. Let your house be always open with largesse. In other words, this is a saying that tells us that you should always offer hospitality to people, to poor people, and especially after we learned that you have to welcome always the sages in your house. Now the poor people should always find a good place in your house. Ve'yiyu aniyim b'nei betcha. And make sure that the translation is that the poor of your household. But let me explain that. Ve'yu aniyim b'nei betecha. Let the people, your family, the children, your children, behave like if they were the poor ones. Now that's an extreme way how to explain that, but we have seen it when we were children. I mean, when we received the guests were so important in our eyes that they could enjoy everything that the house has to offer in food and everything, whereas the people who live in the house, the children, the parents, stood there like if they are waiting for any order to serve them. Another explanation is something that is difficult to say today in our generation. But I remember the generation when the children of the house, the parents educated them in such a way that when you have guests, so make sure that the children do not touch anything from the table until the guests already serve themselves. So I remember we used to stand there, we did not dare to touch anything from the table until given the proper permission, of course, from the parents. So that's one way how to explain Ve'yu aniyim b'nei betecha. Let your own children be the poor ones. But the real simple explanation is that let the poor people come to become like part of your household, like a family. You receive them like if they are part of your family. That's what we call righteousness. That's how the Jewish people was meant to be. Ve'al tarbe siha ima isha. And then Yossi ben Yochanan says, do not talk too much with the women. I will explain. And then he says, Be'ishto amiru. If it says that about your own wife, how much more if you are talking to a different wife? You shouldn't talk too much with her. In other words, you should not engage too closely with the married woman, with another woman. So in order to emphasize that, so he says that even with your wife, in front of the people, don't talk too much with her. Now there is much to say about this. Women, they like to talk. But if you talk too much according to that, then you are going to lose the time that could have been used for the learning of Torah. As he says in the continuation, Mikan ameru chachamim. Thus said the sages, Kol hamarbe sicha im ha'isha. If you talk too much with the woman. Now here, pay attention that here it says not your wife. It said the woman, which means you talk to her because she is a woman. Which means your mind is not so clean. I mean, you have temptations, and that's why you keep on engaging in conversation with her, to the point that it might lead you to something that is quite sinful, right? And that's what he says. Anyone who talks too much with the woman, גורם רעה לעצמו, will bring evil upon himself, ובוטל מדברי תורה. And also, of course, at the same time, he is losing the time that is precious in order to use it for the learning of Torah. At the end, what? What is the conclusion? וסופו יורש גיהינום. At the end, what he will get is, he will inherit hell. Of course, this is something that could take a long time, but it all depending on how a person, how he builds up his own habits. If you fall into the habit of talking too much with other women, then you might just bring yourself into a situation that is unavoidable to cause yourself to sin. Of course, things that we understand. And finally, the third Mishnah will be today, Yehoshua ben Perachia v'Nitai ha'arbeli kibelu mehem. It is the second generation of the couples, of the Zugot. One of them, I mean, we are talking about the two greatest rabbis of the generation, then, who received the tradition and will also give the tradition of the Torah to the next generation. So these ones are Yehoshua, the son of Perachia, and Nitai ha'arbeli. Again, Yehoshua ben Perachia is the leader of the Sanhedrin, and Nitai ha'arbeli was the second in command, let's put it this way. He is the second he is the Avbedin, the chief of the house of the law. By the way, Yehoshua ben Perachia, as we find in the Talmud, was the teacher of Jesus. Was a great teacher, no question about it. And then things happened that caused Jesus to depart from Judaism as we know it. So what were the sayings of these great people? First, Yehoshua ben Perachia Omer, Aseh lecha rav. Yehoshua ben Perachia says, you really want to learn Torah? Make sure you have a rabbi, a teacher. Don't learn by yourself. Learn with a teacher. By the way, even if you sit together with someone who is lower than you in your learning, right? Nevertheless, give him respect, because even from him you could develop ideas and principles. So it's very important for a good learning to have another one with whom you learn. So number one, from the teacher himself, Aseh lecha rav. Now, the words are Aseh lecha, make to yourself a rabbi. By the way, Maimonides explains that even if he is not a rabbi, make him a rabbi. It is very useful for your own learning. There is much to say about this, but enough. Ukine lecha haver. Then he says, acquire a friend with whom to learn, of course. So ukine means buy him. Even if you have to buy him, you acquire him with money. It's so important to have someone else with whom to learn. That's the point. In later generations, we explain this sentence by saying, Ukne lecha chaver, vekane lecha chaver. Kane means the pen with which you write. So let the pen become your friend. Which means when you study, when you have to study by yourself, make sure you write down all kinds of things in order for you to be able to remember. By the way, our sages said in the Talmud that when you learn with someone else, so you are two people who are learning together, then there is much more possibility for you to remember what you learned. But if you learn by yourself, it's very difficult to remember everything. It is, however, it is true that when a person reaches a certain level, a high level of learning, then, like we find some of the old revered rabbis, even of this generation, they learn by themselves because they already mastered the whole Talmud and everything. So it's possible to see. But it's also possible to see a Rosh Yeshiva, a head of a yeshiva, learning with one of his disciples. So important, very important. But in case you don't have a friend with whom to learn, so make sure the pen, you write down, you write your ideas about what you learn and so forth. I do that very often, by the way. And finally he said, the third saying, Vehevedan את כל האדם לקו זכות. And make sure that you judge all men, everyone. Judge everybody charitably, the proper way. Don't judge harshly people. Because many times when things anger us, we always look upon that which we think is the reason, and it makes us even more angry and hateful. No, one should always judge people, whatever they do. First, let's see, it's possible that he had a good intention. So you look for a good intention. That's a good way to pacify the atmosphere of the world and to make the world a better place than what it is. Unfortunately, most of the wars and most of the bad situations and the miseries that happen in the world were due to the fact that no one is judging the other properly, always to the bad way, and that's a known thing. The second rabbi, Nitan Nitan from Arbel. Arbel is also a place. It's in Haifa. The top of the mountain of the Carmel is known as Arbel. So Nitai came from there. Watch that those people, we don't call them rabbis because they were higher than rabbis, much greater level. That's the era of the couples. And then begins the era of the rabbis. So Nitai Ha'arbeli says, Harchek mishachen ra. Be away, stay away from a bad neighbor. Why did he have to say that? Apparently King Solomon said in the book of Proverbs, Tov shachen tov mi'ach rachok. Shachen karov mi'ach rachok. It's better to have a nearby neighbor, better than a brother who is far away from you. How is it possible to say that a neighbor is better than your own brother? The idea is very simple, that a neighbor is near you. You talk to him all the time. If he is good, you will learn the good things from him. But if he is bad, you are going to learn also the bad things from him. Therefore, Nitai Ha'arbeli says, Harchek mishachen ra. Stay away from a neighbor that's bad. Because with a neighbor, we have the habit to talk a lot with him, to socialize with him. If he is a bad man, you are going to inherit some of his traits of character, right? So therefore, be careful. Watch. Even a neighbor, see how he is and see if it is good for you to socialize with him and to associate with him in any way. ואל תתחבר לרשע. Do not become very attached to a person who is bad. A bad man, just stay away. Say shalom, how are you, and bye-bye. That's it. But don't attach yourself to him because, as we said, you might just inherit some of his traits. ואל תתייאש מן הפורענות. The third saying that he says, do not despair in retribution. What does it mean? You know, sometimes a person is a bad man, comes in your life, he becomes your friend. I mean, just giving you an example. And after he gains your friendship and your trust, one day he does something terrible to you. He betrays you, for example. Or he took away from you things and never gave it back. So you feel tremendous pain in your heart. Sometimes people say, look what he did to me, oh God. Please God, do this to me or to him or punish him. And nothing happens. A year passes by, 2 years, nothing happens. The guy stole everything, and yet nothing happened to him. It's not fair. But here, the rabbi tells us, the sage tells us, Al tityaesh min hapur'anut, do not despair in retribution. Retribution will come. The punishment will come. When? This is a matter that only God knows. Because God Sometimes he's waiting before he punishes, even though he deserves punishment, but God is not immediate in the punishment, because maybe there will be some better development, maybe he will have a son that is good, but a punishment will inevitably happen. Even if it happens after 20 years, it could happen. Like there are stories about it. But the best, I give you my advice, even if someone angers you very much, or someone did something terrible to you, it's better not to curse. It's better to say, to raise your eyes to the Almighty and say, please God, don't remain silent with that. Make sure that he comes back to me and asks for forgiveness, and maybe we can settle things. That's the best solution to everything. Otherwise, grudge and hatred bring no solution at all in the world. With this, I say to you, have a very good day. Amen.